Welcome to the Codeplay Culture Podcast, where we discuss tech, gaming, health, and the world around us.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Codeplay Culture. I am Logan Dunning, and we have Rui here. Say hello, Rui.
Howdy, everybody.
What do you got there in your World of Warcraft coffee?
I have my massive, huge, my axe-wielding coffee mug with super Warcraft coffee. I don't know what's in it, but it tastes awesome.
It's a proprietary blend from Azeroth called Zug Zug.
Right. Got it from the tavern somewhere in Orgrimmar.
I do love grog. In, what was that game we were talking about? Secret of Monkey Island.
Yeah.
Grog. So it was burning a hole in the ground, but these big burly men were just consuming it. You know,
man, they were made of sterner stuff than us, man. That's for damn sure.
Iron stomach.
Yep.
Right. So, joining us for the first time, maybe the best episode ever to listen to if you are a new, young, or old, or anything in between, aspiring new person to coding, going through school, learning it in any stage in life. Today, Rui and I are discussing the various resources and strategies for learning code for anyone that's getting in the field and providing advice for hindsight being 2020. Rui and I have, cumulative experience in years, enough for a single person to retire of coding experience, probably, or close to. If you include dabbling with video games when you were younger, I mean, it's a stone's throw for sure.
Programming Commodore games. Yeah, man, for sure.
So, kicking it off, what would you think would be, let's say you're thinking from the perspective of a student going to university, should I get into software development?
Absolutely, you should. We had a podcast, I think it was the first one, where we talked about development and impact of less code. And one of the things I said was, yes, development is a great career and it's super rewarding. It allows you to be creative in every way possible, right? And just the ability to create something from nothing, just your mind, is a reward in and of itself. And I think it's a priceless job. Yeah, definitely. That my advice is get into software development, kids. Do it.
And this is post chat GPT. Post chat GPT is like post COVID for the tech industry.
Yeah.
After the world changed, things are different now. And we were talking about this before we hopped on, right, Rui? The world has not changed. A lot of people were very, very scared when cars came out replacing horses and all of these different huge trends that happened. If you look back historically or look at any Netflix historical references to big changing events in humanity's existence for innovation, there is always this wake of, oh no, right? But if you look at it, a lot of people are probably, stepping down from the edge of the building, or, metaphorically, no harm intended from that, and calming down and saying, wow, you know what? If they were hiring developers before, let's say at $100,000 a year to start when you're out of school, which is kind of crazy if you think about it for like a kid getting out of school, seems to be pretty regional trendy for, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I'm sure, regional differences. But if they were hiring at $100K before, they're now going to hire at $300K. You know why?
Right.
Because you are now 3 times more empowered and smart and witty as a developer than you were before. You work 3 times harder than everyone else because of things like AI, chat GPT, thinking smart. So these are tools that will accelerate your growth and development. We're not yet at the stage where the AI is choosing whether or not it wants to make this app or that app, or, all of that stuff. Right.
Right. And will that stage will we ever reach that stage? I doubt it. I honestly don't see it happening, but I don't want to be one of those people that doubt and then it come to pass.
Yep.
It could be, but I highly doubt AI is going to be able to make those kind of decisions. Basically, it needs to have feelings and needs to want something to fulfill itself. But is it possible? I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. I remember a good quote from, well, not quote, it's like Elon. It was like something he was saying that, yeah, perhaps we're the biological bootstrappers for AI, meaning
Hmm.
that the bootstrap is like a kind of like a program that runs to create the AI, right? So
Yeah.
if you think of these different planets, perhaps when they, whatever thing or whatever, will put these entities there and they evolve, eventually they all will create an AI and the AI will dominate and take it over. So it's like the biological bootstrappers for AI.
Yeah.
Are we just that? Are we in a simulation? All of that stuff. At the end of the day, you wake up and you try to make people happy, have friends, have a lot of fun. Unfortunately and fortunately, you have to be in this capitalism imprisonment, so to speak. So you have to really find something you love to do. And
Right.
I love to code. And Rui,
I do too. I love to
right.
code. I love to create. I love being creative. It's one of our things. One of the things we're born with. That's innate, and we're actually born with that need to create,
Mm,
right? And I love it. I love exploring it. It's a passion of mine, and I feel bad for people who don't have the opportunity to explore that creativity because it's so important.
So would you say that like everyone is creative, but they might just be trapped in like dead end jobs that like
Oh,
constrict their
yeah,
creativity?
for sure. Definitely, man. Everybody has a creative bone,
Hmm.
but for some people, it's not financially feasible, or there's time constraints. It's just not easy to foster that creativity,
Right.
right?
So, if you're thinking about getting into coding and in the wake in this post chat GPT world, if you're about
Hmm.
to hop into a university situation, figuring out this one or that one in terms of university location and, company kind of thing, and you're like, I don't know, should I do this or that? Programming is not dead. It's not dying, in my personal opinion. I think a lot of tech industry experts like Rui and other people that him and I both talk to have this same sentiment where it is just an awesome tool to help you do your job, right? Get
Yes.
into it. It is going to be life changing in terms of um, creative development, rapid growth, creativity, working with
Hmm.
some of the most brilliant minds out there. Now, if you're not too into coding or you can't really figure it out or you don't want to kind of do that stuff, there are tons of other areas to, you know, um, uh, inject your creativity in a industry that is growing in non-coding ways.
Right.
UI, UX, design. If you're not artistic and you don't want to code, what are your options? You
Hmm.
can get people excited about these future potentialities of from sales and marketing perspective.
Right.
You can learn a little bit of the code on the side, just enough to know how it's working.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and you'll probably need to, obviously there's a little bit of a curve there. Coding is getting easier to read, less code to
Yes.
write, and just finding really smart ways to do less work with more highly efficient outputs, right? It's
Right. Right.
definitely.
But in terms of a university student kind of going in different branches in the software development world, what do you think? What do you think the trend is? Because I know that they don't really teach .NET so much in
Mhm.
schools or in
Yeah,
universities or college. They tend to focus more on Python and Java,
yeah,
but there's a huge demand for .NET.
correct.
So what do you think is happening? Are they out of touch with the
Yes,
trends?
for sure. So the disruption of the education industry has not happened yet.
Hmm.
I am of big belief that it will be a catastrophe, not whatever the word for catastrophe in a positive way, like
Yeah,
a
a reckoning.
transformative, yeah, a reckoning, like a wake of reckoning, where everyone just gets like a sack of money, right? Like a very
Yeah.
good thing, right? Because look at YouTube, right?
Hmm.
You don't know how to install the Wiser Door Lock AB4. You just YouTube it. The guy walks through, and you look incredible to your family and friends and your spouse as this super, what's it called, handyman or
Right.
handy person, but you might not be, right? So,
Absolutely.
how does that affect the education? Like, I have more than one university diploma, right?
Mhm.
And I can tell you, for the most part, I don't use very much that I learned in university
Right.
in software and IT systems, all of this stuff. Like when I say that, I mean like data level stuff, not like
Yeah.
I didn't take a computers, so to speak. I took like development, right? And it was
Yeah.
like you said, Java, Python, and Python is big. Yes. Java is maybe not so big. Yeah. There's a lot of different, I do feel like schools right now teach you stuff that is like essentially, let's say 10 years old, right?
Right.
They
Right.
get you to use programs that will fail you, maybe on purpose, right? They're like,
Hmm.
no, you have to use this IDE or something. I'm like, dude, listen.
Right. Right.
So like, but if you think about it, is it important that universities fail you a couple times to make more money? Like, is there a cahoots there? I don't know. Maybe.
There probably is.
Yeah. If we only knew what we knew, we probably wouldn't be alive because of some assassination due to X party, Y party, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
There's so much of that stuff going on, but universities are still behind the time.
Hmm.
Talking to people that are currently in university, but I would say the best thing that you can do is almost, develop in whatever you want, and it
Right.
will only complement and help your university journey. And the other advice I would give to anyone that's getting into university and realizing dude's using .NET, whatever, like 3 point, whatever, or
Yeah.
they're using some old version of Java that doesn't exist, or, they're using Solid, but maybe Solid's a little dated.
Hmm.
I would just say, do, all of that stuff, but try to see if you can get an internship right away or a co-op that is completely outside of the school. I know a lot of the schools will do that. So you
Yeah.
get paid, or they coordinate it, they place people. But I would just say, talk to whoever you can to get a non-paying co-op and just
Right.
minimal, like, 1 to 2 days a week, couple hours here and there. And what you could do with that is apply what you've learned in the co-op at school
Hmm.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough, Rui. I'm not sure if I ever told you this, but I never got an opportunity to go to university due to whatever. I won't go into it. I basically had to jump right into working full time.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had an incredible boss, incredible company that was funding my education. Like if I got a C, some companies will pay for your education if you get like a C or higher. You just have to
Hmm.
like, get it first approved, see how it goes. But
Right.
yeah, I was able to complete a 4 year, like bachelor level program, right?
Hmm.
But in 10 years, you
Nice.
know,
Okay.
by like, evenings and weekends, raising kids and
Right.
all that. But
And
I
you got to
feel,
work.
yes.
Right.
And when I learned something in university, granted, it was online university,
Hmm.
um, and which was trendy at the time, by the way, because now it's all like that.
Yeah.
I was able to apply it. If I learned it in work, sorry, I was able to apply it in school and vice versa,
Right. Right.
right? That is invaluable because when they teach you stuff, you almost like an instructor, or sorry, a professor. You're
Hmm.
you're listening to them for like 2 hours. You could almost picture your in head like that people are falling asleep. They're
Yeah.
not getting it. This is the disconnect between education and applying the education to real world
Absolutely.
situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then going back to your comment about the IDE and being out of touch and using old technology, I remember being or getting my degree, um, and having to use some really old IDE that didn't have any IntelliSense, but there were IDEs that had IntelliSense. There was Eclipse and the JetBrains or JetBeans, whatever it
Yeah.
was,
JetBrains is the
and
best.
you could yeah, and you could easily drag buttons onto your form, right?
Yeah.
But this professor made us create all the buttons in code, color them all, and just do everything kind of
Right.
position them all in code, and
Mhm.
it just made no sense to me going looking back
Yep.
when we had IDs where you can just bypass all that and just add the buttons yourself and
Mhm.
write important code.
Yes.
But I suppose it's part of that thing where, like you said, maybe they want you to fail. Maybe
Yep.
they're trying to make it hard on purpose, or I'm not sure what the thought process is behind manually coding buttons. But
Mhm.
yeah, I have no clue. But that was pretty rough.
Right. It's almost like a mental spanking
Hmm.
from your professor. You know what I mean? And if that professor maybe had like a bad day or something, like we have no idea, right? Because they have some freedom in the
Right.
curriculum too, but they have some things that they have to follow. Like anything, at least as far as I'm aware of in the Canadian education system, they have the guidelines and what they must teach. And then they
Yeah.
have a little bit of freedom here and there to be, do the stuff. There was a good dear friend of mine that reached out to me. He's in university. He said, "Hey, I'm really stuck on this sequel. right, is using
Hmm.
like not like the newest type of database, right? But it was one that he had to connect to his school to like write queries, right?
Yeah.
And you had to write them at the command line, right? Like select star, blah blah blah,
Right.
at the command line. No, like good tool with IntelliSense, like you're saying.
Hmm.
And the questions that he would get answered, right? Because he's like, hey, I went through it. There's 10 questions. I couldn't get these 4. And so I helped, right? And on those 4, like one of them took me like an hour. And I'm like, this is messed up. Like
Yeah.
what they're asking is like, and then I remember what he said. It was awesome. He's like, I don't know if my prof hates me, but this is what he gave me. I was like, it's almost deliberate. Like these, if there's enough isolated incidents to become a trend, there's maybe something to look at there. Or
Right.
without pointing the finger up, people are in the world of making money. There's a lot more going on than we know. However, if if universities are looking to scare kids off from programming, keep
Yeah.
teaching the way that they're teaching.
Absolutely. Yes.
I can tell you, drop the books.
Yeah.
I love to read, but give them a couple options, right? You can do the book, you can do the audiobook, you can have a one-on-one call with your teacher constantly at these cadences, or
Yeah.
it's all on YouTube as instructional videos.
Right. Right.
If you're ever stuck on any of that coding stuff, right? When a book, you don't understand it. As you're going through the book, what worked for me, not at the time because I couldn't, because of YouTube kind of being in its baby steps.
Hmm.
I would today read the book. If you're stuck, YouTube it, listen to it, go
Yeah.
back to the book, right? And then you will have more of a clairvoyance coming back to it than getting more and more lost as you read on.
Right. Right.
Ask questions is important too, right?
For sure. Yes.
What
Absolutely.
else?
And also creating coding. That's
Mhm.
the key. Also, just keep on coding. Keep on making.
Yeah.
Right. Make something crappy today, crappy tomorrow. As long as you're making something, that's what matters. You're getting exposure and you're learning, right? So
Yeah.
it's always a learning process. I still make crappy things, and that's going to happen probably till the end, right? So you're always learning, and
Yeah.
it's always every time you make a mistake, you evolve, right? So
Yep. It's
that's the
funny.
beauty.
I think, going through and I was like showing someone something in school once
Hmm.
and they laughed at it. Right.
Yeah.
And that was like probably like close to 15 years now. Right. They're now a customer of mine. Like,
Nice.
but, like as being the, hopefully, well, I think it's vague enough that, probably won't overhear, but uh, honestly, like I'd never be one of those people that would bring that up other than just now
Right.
on the podcast. So hypocritically, it's ambiguous enough that hopefully would. But the long story short is like you have to love to code, love to be able to do what you do, and have amazing people that believe in you. And
Hmm.
there was an amazing LinkedIn post today, which I don't normally comment on LinkedIn posts, but they're like, oh, sometimes when people leave companies, it's because it's not that they're looking for more money or growth. They just
Hmm.
don't want to deal with that boss anymore.
Right. Yep.
So who knew if you treat people with kindness, respect, compassion,
Hmm.
and say, no, don't work the weekends. Don't like just, work, within the, where you can, if you get stuck, I'm here, like, but don't put in extra, don't sacrifice, all that stuff. Who
Hmm.
knew that it would just make better work, more creativity, more collaboration, and better friendship?
Right.
And then, but you have all of these CEOs that are like, better do it on time, cracking the whip. I'm like, listen, like that is not how, like,
It's an
that
old
whole,
and outdated mentality. That's for
yeah,
sure.
honestly, treat people how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Don't pull rank. Like just anyhow, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but
Hmm.
yes, get into coding, love it. And if you don't want to code in Java and Python because your school is mandating you to do that in some dated IDE and your prof is making you feel like a pile, I would suggest to code whatever you want, whenever you want, on
That's right.
any project you want.
Hmm.
You don't have to make apps. You don't have to make websites. Generally, those are kind of boring.
Right.
Maybe make a game, right? Maybe make some 3D thing that is on the website. Sorry, on the website. And it's on the computer with the mouse and the click.
It's on the internet.
It's on
You know what?
this new internet called the internet.
You're right, man. You're right. Just code. Just make something. You know
Yeah.
what? It's the world is in your hands. Just make something. You can literally make anything you want. There is nothing stopping you.
Yep.
Right?
Steve Gibson. Have you ever heard of this guy?
No.
He's incredible. There's so many incredible minds.
I only know Mel Gibson.
Mel.
It's the only Gibson I know.
A lot of Gibson. I know a couple Gibsons.
Yeah.
They're all great people.
Wait,
well,
Gibson's?
everyone. Yeah.
That's a whiskey too, right?
Not
Ghibli. No, that was last week.
Anyways, I think it is.
Yeah, Gibson's whiskey, man. I think. I think that's a whiskey. I see it. I've seen it at LCBO. Cucumber.
No, what's the one that you take with cucumber? Hennigan's, I think.
Man, I don't take anything with cucumber. I don't know.
No, it's a gin that you take with cucumber.
Is it?
I think it's called, I don't know, either Ask ChatGPT or Google, but there is
I was looking at LCBO. Yeah, Gibson's finest, man.
Are you looking at
$94
LCBO because it's Friday?
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's a snowstorm is no deterrent for the population of alcoholics confined to their house. No, I'm just saying that in general. But can I tell you, like, I used to have this is a really big tangent at this point, but I used to have probably I don't know, like a couple beers, maybe a couple times a month, like on the weekend. But recently I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see how long I can go. And dude, I'm never going back. Like, my sleep is better. Mm-hmm. I have way more energy, and God knows I didn't need any more of that.
Right.
I'm just feeling better. Like, I'm more mentally clear. Like, who knew that poisoning yourself twice a month was bad for you? Anyways, getting back to if you're in school and you're doing that stuff and you're just, okay, I'll just code some 3D game, and you find out that you love it, you can find out early and choose maybe not to get into that field, right? Yeah. Start trying to code the most optimal career path for you so you can quickly determine that, oh no, I'm out, or this is it for me. I want to do this way more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You know what? Speaking of coding, I have a great idea for our next podcast: how to code your life. Lay out a life plan in a form of a flow chart with Venn diagrams and the whole thing. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think I'm being sarcastic, but I'm not even sure if I am.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Every
some sarcasm there.
They say a no question is a bad question, right? So if someone was to generate that, and then basically it's like a coding life plan or a life plan, you basically go to this website or app, and then you basically say, when's your birth date and when's your ideal death date? Okay, so you have a grave in the bottom right, maybe a non-religious to make people more, obviously you're going somewhere. You know what I mean? We haven't fixed that one yet, but hopefully we do. My kid's like,
what if
and then basically I was gonna say, my kid's like, have we cured death yet? And I'm like, no, probably your grandchildren, but we're getting there. They're working on extending life with RDNA, RM, whatever the COVID technology vaccine stuff to double your lifespan. But other than that, no, we're organic and we die.
That's exactly what we need. Another 100 years of working. Yeah.
It's I don't know how it's going to dissolve, but hopefully, what do you think will stop first, the capitalism, or the AI will just, suck us all in and it'll end that way?
Well, they're going to be the capitalists, right? They're going to be the ones, running Wall Street.
What was that planet sucker in Marvel? That Galactus.
Galactus, right?
We're like the biological bootstrap for Galactus. Mm-hmm. We're literally if we're a planet, we're probably like his delt or his bicep.
Yeah,
he just eats
Galactus.
Milk. He pours Milky Way into his Cheerios of stars. Anyways, Lucky Charms. Sorry, where was I? Completely lost it.
We were talking about
the thing.
The coding
app, right?
Life. Yes. Yeah, so the app has a grade at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So
it tells you your death date. Okay.
When ideal death date. Because depending on what you add to your flow chart, actually, if it's smart, it'll move the death date. You're you want to take a 3-year hiatus in Maui, and in a gutter. That's like a good that's a good plan, right? But anyhow, like you well, sorry, joking aside, to each their own. If that's what makes you happy, it can't be that
Of
bad.
course.
Listen, as far as we know, because we don't have, well, I'm sure people do, but maybe they're not allowed to talk about it. We don't have proof that, this is not a one and done situation for your life, right? Even though we have to work, at the end of the day, making yourself and others happy preachily is the only purpose we're here, right? At the end of the day,
Right.
if you can go through the day and not hurt anyone's feelings, you're pretty much God mode activated, right? And
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we gotta learn
so,
how to serve humanity instead of instead of the opposite, instead of
yeah,
sucking from them. Shouldn't say
exactly.
that. That doesn't
Like
sound
these,
good.
like
But
these capitalist
learn to
fat
serve.
guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like this is a communist podcast at this point.
No
Okay.
way, man. Not
Yeah,
even
fair enough.
close.
No. So basically, you add things to that. You're like, okay, I want to do this university degree and I want to
Yeah.
start work there. And you add things to the nodes. You want to start a family and you want to have kids and get them into, let's say you add 3 kids and
Mhm.
you want to get 2 of them to university, but the other is like a brat. So you like, whatever. You're like, you
Right.
hypotheticalize maybe like a loss factor or whatever. And
Mhm.
then you say, okay, then this one changes to, oh, this, you have to generate this much revenue to have this
Right.
outcome, right? But then also a cost savings thing. So are you thinking about like life plan as in financial planning or all of it? Meaning that here's your life plan, here's where you're going. Oh, and then like a little mall map thing, like you are
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
And then you go back to this app, dude, and you're like tired, you're like 78 or whatever, hopefully older, and you're like, you are here. I'm like, you're like, fuck. And you have a heart attack right during you watching the app. And then it
Mhm.
just moves it there because it's like using AI to like watch you. I mean,
Right.
the camera APIs, they're like, oh, you
So
just died.
what's the final message? You win? Would that
Uh,
be the outcome of that whole
yeah,
endeavor?
I guess the outcome of, yeah. Oh yeah. So like, what is the, like, you should be like, hey, because you want to make it like, that's my life plan or a business plan. It's like a planning app, right? But you could
Right.
use it for your life. You could use it for your business, whatever.
Mhm.
In my experience, you don't over generify an app because then uh, it's just not hyper focused, right?
Right.
It's not niche enough. So let's just say it's a life plan app, right?
Mhm.
And if you complete those things, yeah, like you should like be like, yep, I got through life. I'm like
Mhm.
80. I was able to accomplish, oh my gosh, you can even call it, and I'll probably register this before this airs, is like HTTPS bucket-list.com. Can we see
Nice.
if that's available while we're looking
Yeah,
here?
let's check it out.
Yeah. But essentially, bucket list is like, these are the life plan that you want. These are the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what it'll take, and here's where you are. And then when you look at the end, you'll say, you know what? I was able to. I don't want to say that. Like, it doesn't make it would be demotivating if it said you accomplished 99% of what you wanted to in this life.
Mhm.
Like, it'd be a big, like, you know what
You
I
know
mean?
what? It's not. It's taken. Somebody took that. Somebody's
All
already
right.
developing this. You know what? Speaking of this was a great segue, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of the whole getting into software development and
Mhm.
creativity, we just came up on the spot, on the fly, with a creative idea
Yeah.
on how to develop an amazing piece of software.
Yes.
This is the
Exactly.
beauty of software development.
Right. And for those that are listening right now, if there's, in the next 12 months or 24 months, any applications that come out resembling any likeness of works of any intellectual property created on just like the whole like legal thing
Right.
where you're like, oh, come at you with lawyers.
We'll
No,
post it at the end.
no, like at the end of the day, guys, this is it. You find yourself a bunch of awesome friends, like mine, not necessarily like minded. Actually, I found that the more diverse you have of people and opinions, that is sometimes much better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Highly collaborative, friendly, and
Right.
come up with the ideas, get to market, make a business, try to sell it to a company, or
Yep.
just at the end of the day, forget selling it aside. I know you have to, hunt to kill to eat and to feed your family, so to speak. But if you're generally enriching people's lives with a free tool, that is something that you can essentially die happy about.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before about leaving a legacy, no burnt bridges, and
Right.
that kind of stuff, where your kids can look back and say, "Hey, man, my dad really was freaking awesome. Look at
Yeah.
this." And I still you know, I still actually put every song that I listen to the kids with in the car when we drive.
Mm-hmm.
I've added to a playlist that they have access to, that when I
Yeah.
go, they can listen to this playlist. Because till this day, if my dad's, died at 65, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
his first year of retirement. But he, like, we would drive around and he would put on, what's it, I Am Sam, or any Beatles,
Yeah.
like Beatles records. Like, as soon as those songs come on, like Blackbird or anything like that, like I
Flood of
lose it.
memories. Yeah.
Yeah, I just start like, but it is so like, it's a bunch of like, it's a roller coaster of like generally amazing,
Yeah.
like, remembering. But yeah,
Yeah. So maybe our
legacy is
kids can be
important.
looking at that bucket list website and seeing how dad did, and ultimately he hit that 100%.
Yeah, yeah, it's got to hit 100% no matter what. It's got to be like
Yes. We
the
want a
point
positive
system.
outcome.
Yeah, the point system. The other idea is like, like karma or GP.
Yeah.
Like GP meaning God points. Like, you helped the lady across the streets, you
Yeah.
earned 1 GP. I was thinking about like a Google Glass
Mm-hmm.
implementation where every time you did something nice, you would just get like another, like in your, VR, it would go bing. And you
Yeah.
can, but the thing about karma or GP, God points, you
Yeah.
can't spend them, but they do go lower over time,
Mm-hmm. They
right?
diminish over time.
But you can't
Interesting.
spend them. You can't choose what to, but you can get them up super high.
Right.
And then, oh, yeah, there's just like a Lamborghini dropped on your driveway. Like, you're like, whatever, I'll give it to charity. Then your GP goes up another 100. They're like, we
Mm-hmm.
can't, we can't, like, it's almost like, yeah, but that kind of cool app of like
Yeah.
almost like a, a task rabbit
Mm-hmm.
of karma generation. So there's no payment. It's just like a humanity give back application.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so again, getting back to people getting into the industry. So we talked about things like what universities are holding kids back with,
Mm-hmm.
and how to overcome those challenges with smart resources like YouTube, phoning people, having co students, and all of that stuff. But even if your professor, don't take my advice, I'm just telling you what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Says don't use that IDE. I basically plugged it into a different one, and
Right.
then reverse engine saw how it worked, and then redid the code in the one that they wanted.
Yeah.
Because, like, don't let their tools hold you back,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Imagine like Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel with like a little brush that he got from school in
Right.
kindergarten.
Right.
Like, you
Okay.
have to have the appropriate tool.
For sure. And they told
Yeah,
him he can only shop at Benjamin Paints.
right.
And come on, dude. You can't tell him where to shop. He gets his paints where he gets his paints, man.
Yeah, he probably mixes it in a drum outside
Who
his
knows,
mom's
man?
driveway. um yeah, there was no drivers, no car. Well, I don't know, where do they park the chariots? um
On top of people, probably.
yep, it's
I
like
have no idea.
a body chariots. So much famine, so much
I don't know.
disease.
Well, I don't know, man.
Anyways,
Anyways, that's a whole different rabbit
yeah.
hole.
And then the importance of school is
Hmm.
another kind of thing where, like I said, I don't use very much that I learned in university. I would say, getting an internship unpaid or paid, ideally paid, but if you can't,
Yeah.
do whatever you can to get into. It doesn't even have to be a big company. It could just be like kind of anyone. Get in there, start learning and helping. Commit to some open source repositories on GitHub.
Yes,
Maybe just start
absolutely.
reviewing the code. A lot of this uh, GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT stuff is pulling from models that were trained on, well, actually, GitHub Copilot was trained on GitHub, right?
Hmm.
Where ChatGPT was trained on good code, because you can imagine the vastness of GitHub, and you could probably hypothetically like probabilitalize the fact
Hmm.
that there would be more poor code than good. It's
Right.
all out there. They made it all open source, right? People
Yeah.
abandon stuff and don't update it, all that stuff, right? So
Yep.
that's one of the, I would say, I canceled my Copilot for GitHub
Hmm.
license.
Yeah.
Yeah, partially reimbursed. I bought the year, but yeah, but I would say use ChatGPT, pay for it, like whatever can make you more efficient and effective. I would say that over time, ChatGPT would, maybe transform into something like internet. Like, oh,
Yeah.
what's your internet bill? What's your heat bill? What's your hydro bill? This is
Mhm.
now like a utility that people
Right.
are dependent upon. And yeah, what else can young or not young people, just anyone getting into coding, um, should consider, what do you think from?
I think for me, it's just my only advice would be code as much and as often as you can.
Mhm.
Create as much as you can within a time that you have, with the time that you have, and that's it. Just keep creating. Just keep making it. Don't be afraid.
Yep. And if you love it, like if you love what you've created, that's
Hmm.
a good outlet for, you don't need to, you know, just like you love playing games or you love watching TV or watching movies. If you can develop that same love and appreciation for what you created, you can turn that into a career where it is very rarely that you can get paid for playing video games. Probably
Right.
talking about the 0.0001% of the world,
Hmm.
but you can very commonly get paid for creating things with code, as we know,
Right.
with the industry and how it's evolving. Um, and if you love it, you're going to continue to do it because it becomes addictive. You're having fun.
Yes.
If you can see what you've created very quickly, it's even more powerful. And the other thing that there's this whole trend of people love like quality, beautiful, clean code,
Yeah.
right? They're like if you're in the code all day and then if you have to type this stuff and you're like, you know what? I'm going to make this like super neat, tidy, beautiful, all that stuff. There's that whole artistic level of, man, what I made is like, well, I don't even care what I made, right? Who cares about that?
Hmm.
My code is like not a Picasso, whatever the opposite of a Picasso is. It's like,
Hmm.
caviar. You just like, look at it. It's like, it just drips down. It's just beautiful, right? And people love that. Um, so find out what you love early and,
Yeah.
if you don't, switch careers so you don't, waste people's time, money, energy, including your own,
Right.
you find out early, you can get on to the next thing even faster.
Hmm.
But yes, I would say round up long story short or long podcast to a short sentence is if you're thinking about getting into coding and you haven't, code whatever you want right away.
Yeah.
Just and maybe don't set the bar too high, right? That's why they have these things called Hello World, where like don't get into it and say, you know what, I've never coded before, but let me just commit a game to PlayStation Store right away. I'll give myself a week. If I can't do it, then probably not for me.
Hmm.
Ideally, that would be a great world if we
That
live
would
in
be
that.
amazing. Yeah.
Like hopefully we're there, but the reason Hello World exists is it gives a short little example from any coding language of how to run your first application and write Hello World. That's the
Right.
whole thing about it. So if you want to do Python, I would Google Hello World in Python. If you want to do C# or anything in Unity, Hello World in Unity. GitHub is a great example. You can search the whole thing for whatever you want. You could type in badminton video game in Unity. And
Yeah.
you could see in GitHub, you could take the code, it's all open source, read the licenses, of course, because there could be, a pay once you get to a certain point, whatever it is. See if you can get it up and running and change it. Another good approach I just realized is if there's code out there already from GitHub that you can run it, right?
Right.
Like locally on your machine, right? And see if you can change it. So if someone made a cool little calculator app or
Right.
something on a website, go to GitHub, download it, see if you can run it, and see if you can add buttons to it, right?
Right. Right.
For me, it's much easier to change an app that exists than, okay,
Create from scratch.
like here's a blank canvas. Blank canvas is probably um, a big deterrent sometimes, right?
It is, and that should be for more seasoned developers too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Starting
The
from
blank
scratch.
can- yeah,
Yeah.
starting from scratch is the default, right?
Yeah.
But
But
I
it's
think the
tough.
new default should be take some code, run it, and add change, see what
Absolutely.
happens, right?
And
Scientifically poke the bear.
yeah, and what do they call that? The process is called refactoring,
Mm.
and
Yep.
development term for it. So you take the code and you refactor it. right? And just
Yeah.
kind of make it your own,
Yeah.
and that will help you, you know, achieve whatever you need to achieve. But yeah, the main thing is don't be afraid and don't worry, it won't break.
Yes. Especially because, you downloaded it to your machine and you can always re-download it and start from scratch because GitHub is an indefinite history of all of the different changes committed over time. Yeah. And also back up your code. If you ever make something good, don't assume that your hard drive is bulletproof just because it has BitLocker. Your
Mhm.
computer can get stolen or whatever it is, right? Back up your stuff. You might want it someday for a portfolio. Make a portfolio when you're shopping yourself around to different companies if you do go through with that as a career path. And yeah, again, long story short, get into coding, try it out. You're going to love it. Rui and I both love it. We almost everyone that's still in the industry to this day. I don't personally know someone that I got into coding and then completely got out of it. I feel like once you can really sink your teeth into it, you end up falling in love.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, man.
All right. So 2 minutes left. So yeah, thank you everyone. Rui, any last words before we head on out like a baby?
Any last words? Not really. Why are elevator jokes so good?
I don't know, because they can only go up. I don't
They
know.
work on so many levels. Those are
Oh
my last
my
words.
God, that is great. Happy Friday, and we are out.